On long term, I don't think so.
Do you see yourself living in Korea long term? Would that be like moving to another country?
I'm trying to figure out if it is a possibility for me or if I would rather go back to Switzerland.
I don't know if I can imagine to stay here the next 10 years.
Here, the mortgage rates here, if you want to buy a house, is not very preferential to foreigners.
What's one thing about Korean life you just can't get used to?
People are pushing you in the streets and not apologizing.
But out on the sidewalk, people walk on whichever side.
When you just go in expecting to speak Korean with them and they automatically try and speak English with you.
I've asked for directions and they just run away.
Do you see yourself living in Korea long term?
On long term, I don't think so, but maybe for my studies, for like a little part, but not for too long. Like, I don't know if that makes sense.
You talked about not wanting to live in Korea for too long. Why is that?
Because I heard that the life like as a worker in Korea is actually pretty hard and harsh. So I don't see myself. I have a lot of trouble just working in Belgium and all this stuff. Just the pressure that we have in Belgium is already very big. But here I heard that it was bigger, and yeah, I can just do this.
I feel like that's a difficult question. I would definitely like to come back. I would like to spend some time here. I think maybe like a few years in the future, but I think like permanently, probably not. I think as a foreigner, it's pretty hard to assimilate into Korean culture.
I don't think so, because maybe for maybe 2 years or a little bit more, but not do my whole life in Korea, because I think there's still so many cultural differences that is hard for me. And for example, I think the work in Korea, because Korean works so hard and for so long, and sometimes it can be hard, and I don't see myself putting all my life in my work life. So that's why. And maybe also because I love Korean food, but I will miss French food, so I don't think so.
Right now, I actually don't, but it's mainly because of the things that I heard from other people on social media. The main reason is that it's I heard it's very hard to get a good paying job or enough paying job to be able to live comfortably in Korea. But I've only been here for 3 months, so I'm trying to figure out if it is a possibility for me or if I would rather go back to Switzerland.
Maybe in the future, because I love to learn new languages. So yeah, maybe working here in Korea for 2 years, and then yeah, after that we'll see.
I don't think so. I think for an exchange year was amazing, totally recommended, great experience. As for leaving, I don't think so. I wouldn't.
Why is that?
I've heard the working culture here is too intense. They work insane amounts of hours for not the price it should be. Also the dating culture, here having a girlfriend, it's in a few days, there's a lot of texting, there's a lot of dependency on your couple. I don't like that. I'm more free and open. And the social pressure that is in kids and studying, I think it's too hard. The way that people judge each other, I think. I'm not used to that, and I wouldn't want to raise a family here.
Actually, I'm thinking about doing another exchange program, but not really exchange, maybe thinking about doing a second master's degree here to keep working on my Korean language skills and develop knowledge about the country even more. But I still don't know either Korea, Japan, Malaysia or something like this. So, but yeah. Actually, Korea is quite interesting. So
I think for the next few years, I will also want to stay here because life is way more convenient here and more fun. There are so many things you can do every day. But I don't know if I can imagine to stay here the next 10 years or something.
I think I can, but it's quite difficult because my culture is so different from Korean culture, and I want to stay close to my culture also. So I can see myself living in Korea long term, but I also see myself going back home.
I could live for a couple years. I wouldn't say long term. I feel the biggest one, I feel for most people, is just the language and some of the inner workings of the culture. Just because, the language is always very complicated. I would definitely live here for a couple of years just because I feel it's very nice and people are very kind. But long term, not really.
I want to if I can, because the visa, it's a bit complicated to have it. So maybe if I, after my Korean language institute, I will find maybe a work here if I can. If I can't, I will come back to France and maybe come back after. I will see. But normally, if I can, I will do it.
I think it depends on how the rest of my university life goes. But right now, I do see at least attempting to work here in the future. But if that doesn't work out, then I'll have to find another plan.
Would that be like moving to another country or going back to the US?
Probably going back to the US, but probably leaving again after a little bit.
Why do you not see yourself living in the US?
There's a lot of things going on in the US the past few years, and probably will continue to increase in things going on that I don't really want to be around.
I have been living in Korea for like 8 years now. It's been a while, and then now that I'm married, I'm even much more settled here. But I guess there are some concerns though for me living in Korea in the future in the long term. I think the first thing is that to get a permanent residency, a PR, which is the F5 visa, not only you have to live here for at least 5 years under a certain visa, but you have to make double the gross national income of Korea, which I think now stands at about 80 million won per year. Or you need to have an assets of at least 1.5 net assets of the yearly average. So that's a lot. And I think linking to that, there's very limited job opportunities for foreigners here, especially if you don't speak English. And even so, these days I'm aware that there are more bigger companies like Samsung, Hyundai, and so on that are recruiting more foreigners. But I think from what I heard from my friends is that even though you get in, there's still an invisible ceiling where it's hard for foreigners to climb the corporate ladder. So if you expect us to make a lot of money to go to PR, but then there's limited opportunity, then it's kind of contradictory. So I think that's one thing that I'm a bit concerned of, living here long term.
What's one thing about Korean life you just can't get used to?
I feel like there are a lot of kind of unspoken rules in Korean society, especially when you're out in public interacting with strangers. And so for instance, if you're on the escalator, you're expected to stand on the right unless you're walking quickly to pass on the left. But out on the sidewalk, people walk on whichever side. And so if I'm looking down at my phone, I feel like I always almost bump into people because I can't really predict where people are going to be.
Firstly, the prices of the supermarket. I like eating out and everything, but the prices of the supermarket to eating out is quite too similar. So it's not very budget-wise to do groceries. It's very hard to find cheap products to cook yourself at home.
And how is it back home in Spain?
In Spain, it's much cheaper, especially fruit. I've been on a lack of fruit for a few months. I'm only eating bananas, which I love bananas, but I need some more fruit, and Spain is so much more cheaper.
Right. Maybe the fact that Korean don't hold the door for you, because in France we do it. So sometimes they don't hold the door and I get the door in my face. But otherwise, Korean are very helpful.
The biggest one is just kind of the bowing. I know they have honorifics depending on if you're older or younger. I feel like I can't really get used to that. And just always walking into a convenience store, that was the biggest one, and just being oh hello or oh goodbye, because you don't really do that in the US, you just go do whatever you want and then you just go home. So that's the biggest one.
People pushing you in the streets and not apologizing, I guess. They just randomly bump into you and they just keep going with their lives. So yeah, that's something in France, if you bump into someone you're just sorry, but in Korea they just keep going.
I think it's that Koreans are sometimes really self-centered. I would say for example, they would never go on the side when you want to pass, or that would never hold on the door for you. I think this is something that in Germany, people are way more open. They would like to talk also to other people, and here everyone is just living for themselves.
I can get used to the spitting on the floor. Many Koreans spit and make loud noises. This is something I will never get used to.
A lot of things. I think if you are not able to speak Korean well, then you might have some troubles. Also, Koreans are usually more friendly to people who they can speak Korean with, I think. That's just my experience. Also, the food is kind of different. At first, my stomach had to get used to it a little bit. Yeah.
Earlier, you talked about wanting to learn Korean dishes. Why is that?
When I got into K-pop, I wanted to know a lot about Korea. So I at some point went into a Korean restaurant in Switzerland and I was just blown away. So
What is one Korean dish you're very confident in making?
bulgogi.
I think there are many things that I can get used to. I guess, here in Korea, they don't really hold the door for you. I think I'm probably not used to that. And then also, I think seeing some of the older people spitting on the streets, I think that's also something that I'm not used to here. What else? I think maybe the housing system as well here is very unique. We have the jeonse system, like a big, huge deposit. I think it's only in Korea. That's also maybe something that I'm not very much used to here.
Like at restaurants or like the convenience store, when you just go in expecting to speak Korean with them and they automatically try and speak English with you, so they don't even give you a chance to practice. But I think I've lived here for 2 years, so I think a lot of things have become normal. And if they were like difficult to adjust to before, I think I've adjusted now.
What would be some personal deal breakers that will stop you from living in Korea long term?
I grown up in Europe and in Belgium, so I have a lot of there's a lot of things different between Korea and Belgium, Europe. So there is like a lot of little things that I'm like, I don't know if my habits will just go away when I will be living here, because there's a lot of things that I do every day that we don't do here.
I think the diversity of what we can see in Europe, like Belgium, I think it's pretty different. The work that they do here, like the mindsets that they have, it's not the same as in Belgium. So yeah, just want to see what it will be to work here.
A bit of language barrier. I'm Spanish, so I'm more confident in Spanish. I feel my English is good, but sometimes expressing what you think, what you feel, or what you want to say is a bit hard. So I usually rather live in a Spanish-speaking country. So personally, that's something that pushed me off a little bit, and also that not a lot of people speak English. It's hard sometimes to communicate, and that drives me off a little bit.
I do study Korean language, but it's very, very difficult. I've been studying for a few years now, and I feel like I don't know if I'll ever reach a level of proficiency that would allow me to like really make deep, meaningful connections with the people around me. So I feel like that's something that kind of, I don't know, just makes it like a little bit scary or a little bit unappealing.
The weather, because like in France, like in summer, the weather is hot, but it's okay because it's not like humid. But in Korea, like it's so hard, especially in the rainy season.
I think the work-life balance, but I guess like if I work for like a foreign company, like French company, then maybe might be different. But I don't feel like I want to work in a Korean company. And also the language barrier, like because I feel like even if you study Korean for a long time, you still have some things like you're not gonna know and you're not gonna be able to use like in a business field, business-oriented area. And I think that's something that would maybe stop me because I'm working in business. So like if you can't communicate properly with like customers, like clients and stuff, then that might be an issue.
The only point is money. Like I really enjoy pretty much everything in Korea, but I just heard that the work culture is very bad and you don't get paid enough for the amount of work that you do. So it's just this one point which is causing some difficulties.
So if I would never find a good job that would like give me a secure life here or like a stable income, and also if like the culture would never really accept me as a like part, if I will always be seen as a foreigner, that will make it like very difficult, especially when I speak the language or I try to speak the language, but they will always answer in English to me. That makes me feel kind of frustrated because I try my best.
My family, I feel like that's a big one. You know, I feel like also I don't know many people here. Like my friend's only staying here for a couple more weeks. So just like not knowing anyone, I feel like people here are not really open, especially like traditional Koreans, because I met a lot of international people, you know, a lot of people from England, from Germany, etc. But Koreans are not, they don't seem like really that friendly, at least on like first impression. Like they don't really are the type that if you were to strike a conversation with them, even if they speak English, they'll talk to you. Like sometimes I've asked for directions and they just like run away, and I'm like, I'm just trying to go somewhere. But like other times they're really helpful. But like you never really get the vibe that they're gonna be like, oh, really good friends and like talk to you a lot. So
if you plan to have children, I think the environment here to raise a kid, as you know, is very competitive. And I don't know if I want to raise my kid in that kind of environment, especially as a minority. And imagine on top of that, if your kid has some sort of disability, for example, autism, or it's within any spectrum, that's like double handicap, no? And I don't think the environment is ready for that here, or very accommodating to that kind of scenario. Another thing will be mortgage here. The mortgage rates here, if you want to buy a house, is not very preferential to foreigners. You will get nice preferential rates for mortgage if you're a Korean, but not as a foreigner. You know, they have programs for youth, for newlyweds, for Koreans, but this doesn't apply to foreigners. I think last thing will be about your social life in Korea. I think now Korea, I've been living in Korea in my 20s and now in my 30s. It's been very fun, and I think Korea is a very fun country, especially Seoul, to live in your 20s and 30s. But I'm not so sure when it comes to my 40s and 50s how it'll look like. So I heard, like, as a foreigner, especially if you don't speak English, there's this kind of isolation or loneliness that happens even if they're in their 20s and 30s with all of these social opportunities. But and once you reach 40 and 50, naturally the social opportunities will decrease, right? For socializing, for going out. So I don't know, it makes me a bit concerned. And then on top of that, I don't know if it's just Korea or is it expat life in general, but I think friendships in Korea is very transient in the sense that people come and go. People come and go most of the time, especially foreigners. And if you invest in friendship, these kind of friendships, and you know that they're going, it's kind of draining. And then I think most people, when they reach like 3 years mark, they mostly leave. So, and I've lived here for 8 years, and I've experienced as many of my friends who have left the country. So, that's kind of not nice. And I feel like the pressure to always be outside and be making friends all the time, because I don't know when my friend will leave me. So,
if you're traveling to Korea, I have my guidebook which covers everything from shopping, food, all the things that locals actually do in South Korea. So, if you'd like to travel to South Korea as a local, check out my guidebook in the description. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you'd love to see more like this in the future, be subscribed.